Hello and welcome to this fresh episode of Point CounterPoint. We are here to discuss an elephant in the room which is eating into our very vials. And if you've been noticing in the last 2 to 3 weeks, Goa has once again been ravaged by yet another case of drugs and murder. And interestingly, it follows the same pattern as many of the cases that we've seen for the last decade or so. And it's an irony that some of our panelists here will also bear me out, that in 2022, when we are sitting here, our mind goes back to that infamous incident of 2008 when British teenager Scarlett Keeling was killed. And in 2022, it almost seems as if time has stood still, in the sense that the narrative is the same, the series of circumstances is the same, some of the characters seem to be same, the cast is same, and this whole cocktail of an easy supply of drugs, relationship between the system and the drug peddlers, a very strange interplay of forensics being dictated by politics, and of course the role of the media. Everything is important, but the irony again, as I would repeat, that in these 14 odd years, nothing seems to have changed, and we are again at the crossroads to analyze what ails Goa. And I think in this discussion, I think the menace of drugs and how it is perpetrated into our system, how it's dictating our economy, affecting our tourism and destroying lives should be the focus. Because in this entire hodgepodge of issues that come up, we always feel that the most menacing of them, drugs, is somehow buried under the carpet, and yet it crops up again and again. And before I introduce my panelists, I will draw your attention to one more important fact. 2 weeks ago, on the 16th of August actually, the Hyderabad police arrested one drug dealer called Pritesh Borkar. After his arrest, the Hyderabad police, actually it is a Hyderabad narcotics wing called H New. That the Telangana police is narcotics wing. In their quick investigations, realized that this Pritesh Borkar was an interstate drug peddler based out of Goa. He was transporting drugs in bulk from Goa to Telangana and distributing it amongst the student community in Hyderabad. The narcotics wing there soon found out who his main suppliers were, named the main suppliers. Some of them are very interesting names that came up, and Herald was the only paper to report it. They spoke about the drug chain, the drug supply, and so on and so forth. The shocking part is that the Goa police, when we asked them about the same internal report of the Hyderabad police, which ultimately turned into a press note and became public, the Goa police either did not have a clue or pretended they did not have a clue of the names that were there in the report and why they did not do anything for 10 years. This morning, we realized that the lot of papers in Telugu, they took the Herald report and also mentioned it and used that Herald report in court to pursue the same case of Pritesh Borkar. The point here is that the system, either deliberately or otherwise, chooses to ignore issues of drugs and drug peddlers. Anyway, I've spoken enough. I'd like to introduce a very eminent panel, the best we could have had, and people who are well versed in what's been going on. One is Advocate Vikram Verma, very senior lawyer who's incidentally best known as the lawyer who fought the Scarlett Keeling case and was advocate for Scarlett Keeling's mother, and due to his tireless efforts and prayers of many, finally managed to get the conviction that he wanted. Next to him, another star player in that whole cast, Dr. Silvano Sopeco, needs no introduction, one of Goa's proudest professionals, and somebody who has headed the forensics department of the GMC with a lot of professionalism and courage. I use the word courage deliberately. Last, again, but not the least, Trajan Nebello, also somebody who happens to be a politician but has worked on this issue of drugs more as an activist than a politician, and has taken up many issues, fought many cases, and Trajan Babu, you are very welcome. Vikram, I'll not ask you any further question. I just request you to quickly respond to what I've said with your own opening remarks.
What you've said is so true. As far as the angle of narcotics is concerned, whether it's being supplied from Goa to Telangana or to the tourists in Goa, the quantum of the organization of the drugs and the organization is quite large. The fact that it has been suppressed means that it has existed with the support of a few bad apples in the Goa police and those in power. This particular aspect of narcotics is perhaps one of the most dangerous aspects to a healthy society, and one has to collectively work against it without any doubt. And unfortunately, it is being somehow sidelined, as you have rightly said, that instead of focusing on the narcotics being provided to a person who's come from outside and then that resulting in the rape and murder, the focus leaves out the narcotics angle, which is the foundation for weakening a person, and it is continuing time after time, case after case.
Right. Dr. Sapeko, in the first round, we just asked for initial responses to what I've said. We'll get into the proper questionings later.
Indeed true, sir. I fully concur with what you have said. And we are observing it, that in the whole rigmarole of this issue, the doctors in the Department of Forensic Medicine are made the sacrificial lambs. Ideally speaking, whenever the viscera is collected for chemical analysis, the analysis must be done within a period of 2 weeks' time. The report must be with the investigating agency and therefore before the trial court. But it is sad to say it's not only weeks beyond 6 weeks, but even much more than that. And this dereliction of duty or this omission is definitely beneficial to the alleged accused people.
But why do you feel this is being done? What does the system gain by delaying the viscera or not preserving the viscera at some point? But assuming that the viscera has been preserved, what does the system gain? What does the police gain? Because that only weakens the case.
You have hit the nail on the head. Many a times it is better to prosecute or rather persecute somebody and get an acquittal. That could be the hidden agenda, which we don't see the tip of the iceberg. Only when the case goes for acquittal, we have vested motives against the alleged public prosecutor or against the trial judge or against the appellate high court judge. But ideally, on day zero, the things were set.
Can you, Doctor, elaborate a little bit on where you, in your vast professional experience, have actually preserved the viscera and wanted a quick response, where the case was totally botched up due to this delay? Because delay is not on your part. You all send it as soon as possible. But what are the hurdles that you find in sending the viscera report to a committee? See, for again, if you could just touch upon the fact that for many years Goa did not actually have a proper lab. So, and you all have to send it to probably Hyderabad or Delhi, one of the two places. So, if you could just tell us how these delays were initiated and how the delays have affected.
So, ideally speaking, we follow a unique system in Goa. We prepare the report on the same day and we submit the report along with the sealed chemical analysis of the viscera, jars, files, bile, urine, whatever the fluids that are desired, along with the clothes, materials, serological testing. We give it on the same day to the police investigation officer. Now it is between him and his authority. Now ideally they were preserving in Verna, where the person in officer, the then officer in charge, he is now the present deputy director, very efficient person. I give my hats off to him. And he was from his own side getting a liaison with the forensic science laboratory at Kalina, or sometimes at Calcutta, or sometimes at Hyderabad, to ensure that the report would come. But invariably, because of bureaucracy, there were delays, because to get a viscera dispatch order, they need a demand draft. And after the demand draft is sanctioned, then they need a police escort team to take the materials to the concerned destination. So that is...
This is very important, because delays can happen here, either deliberate or otherwise. To get a demand draft or to get a team. See, because as you were mentioning, and just bear me out on this, where you said that if it's not done within 15 days, you cannot get a good report, right? And I don't think in your entire experience have you ever got a report back in 15 days?
Never.
So that itself speaks for a story. That such a senior forensic expert is saying that in his entire career he's never got a visceral report in 15 days, where 15 days is the outer limit for a good report to come. Anyway, we'll dwell on this further. Tajan Bab, your opening views.
See, as Dr. has said, Advocate Vikram Bab, the issue of so many murders that have taken place because of drug consumption, the drug angle has never been taken forward. It has been put under carpet by projecting the murder angle. And therefore, the drugs is just thriving like nobody's business. I will tell you, when you have a government who encourages festivals that where everybody knows drugs are sold, so what are you exactly sending the message? I will tell you why I am saying this. I was fighting a case against the EDM festival, where some girl had died, and I had taken it up before the court, and I had got an expert opinion to say also what Dr. said just now, that a visceral report after a certain amount of time cannot get the real quality and the real cause of the scenario. It gets diluted. After having produced that to the court, that here there is no, because everywhere EDM festivals, the deaths that are taking place, 3-4 girls have died.
Right.
The visceral report has been sent, cause of death is not known.
Right.
Now my question is, surprisingly, after pressing that drugs are being sold there, I don't know whether you know about it, an order was passed by the judge, by the bench, to say that during the festival, 500 meters radius of that area should be sanitized for drugs. That means admitting very clearly that drugs are there, but keep it 500 meters away.
Right.
This was the order I got in the court after putting pressure that, Baba, this is happening, how can it? And you have a government who is giving license even without taking its fees.
Right.
This is another thing. I am a person who has gone when the EDM festival at 5 o'clock in the evening. I have approached the court at 3 o'clock to say fees are not paid. And by that virtue, for 2-3 festivals, about roughly 7 crores was recovered through me. Otherwise, they were just issuing licenses.
Right.
One side you are issuing licenses, one side it is known blind fact. The court itself passed an order, no, 500 meters you see. What is the meaning of it?
Right.
So, drugs is not being taken care of by any successive governments. The reasons are very obvious.
Coming to the Sonali Phogat case, we'll just dwell on that a little bit because one of the triggers for this happy meeting of ours is that particular case. Unfortunately though, but the issue we are meeting to discuss this once again because of that case. Vikram, you must have followed it out of your own professional interest in this.
Yes.
What are the striking similarities that you find, if at all, between what happened in the Scarlett Keeling case and the Sonali Phogat case?
Well, the first thing here is the easy availability of drugs. What I understand in this particular case, her personal assistant was able to get drugs in the hotel they were staying in easily. Also, when they went to Curly's restaurant, they were able to get the drugs easily. That's what I think the preliminary findings of the Goa police have also been. In the Scarlett Keeling case also, when Scarlett arrived from Curly's restaurant, what the witnesses testified that her gait was unsteady.
Okay.
The forensics later on confirmed that she had been given a cocktail of narcotics.
Okay.
Certain
In the same spot.
In the same spot.
Right.
And certain narcotics like the MDMA tablets and all that were given to her by the accused, the convict now, right, who spiked her beer with those narcotics in the presence of another witness who testified in court. So the similarity is the absolute easy availability of narcotics and the fact that they can be provided to any woman, right, or man, right, to sort of render them out of their full ability to defend or protect themselves. And once that is done, they are easy victims. Plus, I think what we will see in the future, right, is the confidence that these people have in terms of being able to be acquitted on procedural grounds or delays. In another incident, for instance, in the Daniel case.
McLaughlin case. In Cancun.
Yes, Cancun.
Yes.
Today, it's been more than 5.5 years.
That's right.
Right. Only 10 prosecution witnesses have been
examined.
5.5 years for 10 prosecution witnesses. In a trial in any civilized society, we could have completed that in 6 months' time, the entire trial. And it's not that India is not a civilized society. We have seen in the case of the Delhi case, within 3 months' time, the prosecution could provide the energy
Correct.
to bring all the witnesses, all the forensic evidence, and
You're
come
speaking
to
of the
a
Nirbhaya case.
Nirbhaya case.
Yes, yes.
We could come to a verdict. So, we as a nation, we are not a third world nation. We have the capacity. We have brilliant minds. But what is missing is perhaps the intention or the resources to be provided. So that gives a tremendous amount of confidence to the accused, which was there in the Scarlett Keeling case, which perhaps has also transferred into this particular case.
Dr. Sapika, I will ask you the same question from your point of view as a forensics person and whatever you are seeing of this particular case. For instance, if you see the pattern of the investigation, also looking into the charges that have been framed and the way the forensics is behaving, what is the uncanny similarity and where do you think this case is going?
As on date, I do not have the page 3 of the post-mortem examination report.
Right.
Ideally speaking, the page 3 of the report, in the 7-page report, gives you the type of injuries that are there.
Right.
But whatever the press or the investigating agency has informed, it appears that they were simple, trivial injuries which were present on the person of Sonali, which could have occurred as a result of alleged accidental falls or as a result of fits during the episode of toxicity of those narcotic substances which were administered. Ideally speaking, neither individually nor collectively they could have accelerated or precipitated the cause of death.
Right.
In fact, even their absence would have resulted in death in view of the qualitative and quantitative analysis of the narcotic substance administered to her to be confirmed by the chemical analyzer hereafter.
Right. Right. So what you are saying is this: if the confirmation is delayed, then the actual cause of death will never be found.
You hit the nail on the head.
Correct. Correct. So tell me now the other issue that we were discussing, and I found very interesting when we were having a chat before this, where one of you all mentioned that registering the case as 302 is actually detrimental to the investigation, and registering it as 304 would be better. Any of you can respond to this, but if you can start on this.
Sir, whenever any charge of 302 is put, there are 4 tenets of law to be established. The planning, motive, intention and after effects. And all these 4 tenets have to be proved beyond reasonable doubt by the public prosecutor to the session judge who will eventually convict. But remember, there is also the defense advocate. The defense advocate will punch holes that all these 4 tenets have not been fulfilled to perfection. Like in the instant case. What is the planning? 3 of them came together. In fact, there was a live-in relationship.
Exactly.
And mind you, in a live-in relationship, it's not the police who can investigate. It was for the magistrate to conduct a magisterial inquest under 176 of the CRPC. It was not done. The police investigating agency knew that there was a live-in relationship. Still they suppressed it. Whose fault? I don't know. Second issue. This intention and the motive of killing her. Was there any material gained? Like I found that there was even a gold ring or a gold bracelet or some gold ornaments were handed over along with the body material and the clothes. There was no item from victim Sonali missing, or that could not be the motive. Intention. What would be the intention of killing your own friend by these 2 persons? And the after effects. They did not run away from the scene. They were very much present. So all these, I feel that if an offence under 304 part 2 be booked, the trial judge will have a strong say. And if at all he feels that there is evidence of all these 4 tenets being proved, at the time of conviction, he can increase it to 302 and then court. But ideally speaking, it should be a case under 304 2 of the IPC.
Rajan, tell me, now you've heard both of them. I will come into an area where you understand this deeply, the political angle. Every time, somehow we seem that the accused, who are people from this land, unfortunately more often than not, get a strange kind of comfort and protection from the system, whether it is the police, whether it is the local people, even witnesses don't come forward to speak against them, and then finally people in the government. If you can just narrate that this is an uncanny similarity that happens in most cases.
It is not most cases, in practically every case that comes to light. Only it is the manipulation may be giving little turns here and twist over there. For example, let us take this case itself. First they said it was a heart attack.
Yes.
After 2 days they are saying we saw the CCTV that fellow has spiked her drink.
Right.
Now why this came afterwards? This should have been done first.
Right.
So what is it now? Is the system aiding and abetting the criminals? Because a few pennies, where the name of Goa, the name of the entire state is coming at risk. Where are you going to take that little pennies that you have? You are not able to even enjoy it. My question is, the system, I am not talking about any particular government. I would like to go very blunt, that every successive government, of course earlier it was in a smaller quantity, today it has become in a larger quantity. Every crime keeps on getting its quantity in a different form.
Right.
Today it has reached a point, villages, you can get drugs available in schools,
Absolutely.
outside
Right.
schools.
Yes, yes.
Right, remote villages, it is surprising and shocking. So if our entire youth is going to get embroiled and going to get addicted to drugs, what will be the future of our state? What development are we talking of?
Right.
What revenue are we talking of in the name of tourism? We have finished in Goa. I tell you, I used to go to Baga from Guinea to sleep every day in the month of April, May and come by cycle home. Can you enter Baga today? I have not seen Baga, to be honest. It's a total chaotic situation.
Correct.
And in the name of revenue, in the name of tourism, we have finished Goa. It is high time that civil society should also stand up.
Absolutely.
Civil society has also got a very important role in this. Everybody says, Mata fayda ki de. If this is going to be the attitude, why should I stand up? What do I gain? I have faced it. I know what I have gone through for the EDM festival. You know it. 6-7 times going to the High Court, where I had to face a defamation of 50 crores in Mumbai at the end of the day. Going and coming itself was this. You are also implicated in
Yes,
this.
yes.
Right? What I am trying to say is,
Well, sought to be implicated. They didn't do much because our facts were clear.
Yeah. No, I am trying to say you are in the charge.
Correct.
You are there. You are not
Because we reported your press conference.
Correct. Right. That is why.
Yes.
So what I am saying is, the struggle that a common man has to make to fight this, how long will you go to fight it? This is also where civil society backs out.
Correct.
What is the security they will get? Are we sure? If I take up the issue, tomorrow my wife and daughter at home are worried whether I will reach home or not. Once it is after 7, though it can happen during the day too. Such has become the security is you see, our state government does not realize that they are the guardian of every citizen. It is their duty to take care of us. But are we taking care of? We are just left to the winds. Now, how will this change? And again, there will be a movement. This is a bubble. It will break, last. It has to somewhere blast. And there will be. But when?
So you are essentially saying, and last question before we take a break, are you saying that Goa has become a soft state?
Not only soft state. I think it's the breeding state now. Everything starts from here and goes out. And there, as you have just now pointed out, what happened in Telangana, the person is from Goa origin, taking from here and going out.
Correct.
So this has become the breeding place, this has become where the drugs are sold. We have seen so many places where foreigners are planting these drugs over here. So it has become a very, very, not soft target. Absolutely, no, every drug peddler knows that he can handle the system.
Very important. Those are just the same question, in the sense that this whole feeling that everything goes in Goa. That when you come here, if you choose to take drugs or you use your trip to Goa as a tourist to party and have drugs, and also see what we have also seen, and all of you all will bear me out, even now, if you see the number of trance festivals that are happening all over, trance parties that are happening all over, I mean, every weekend or every long weekend, you'll have so many posters coming up underground or on social media of this party happening, that party. The issue is, do they take sound licenses there? Do they take permissions there? Is there any money coming into the system out of there?
Nothing.
On what basis? Do they follow the simple guidelines of sound laws when they do it?
No.
Quick response. I mean, we'll dwell on this, but if you can just throw some light on it.
I fully concur with you. I think it's only by omission that they get the licenses, or maybe they There is an understanding between the politician and between the organizer, and that's the reason why most of these licenses are overlooked.
Right.
For that reason, I want to tell, has the government or the judiciary been proactive to appoint wardens? If there were wardens today, this type of a system would have been curbed.
What would the wardens do?
It is for the judiciary to give the judicial powers, like a superintendent of police must be escorted by the member of the warden, who will have powers of the judiciary to and report back to the judiciary about the uncouth activity which is going on within that system.
This is the task. Who will accomplish this task?
Ideally, it is for the executive to do it, and I know it that the executive will never do it. The legislature also will never do it. So it is for the judiciary, that is the High Court, to appoint suo motu certain wardens
Especially in some zones.
In every field of Goa, in whatever it is, be it the courts or be it in the police investigating agency, whatever other soft areas or the sound music, they have to appoint wardens and ensure that justice is delivered to the public at large. Today, the senior citizen is not free.
Before I come to Vikram, a quick thing. Do you feel Goa has become a soft state? And having the efforts of lawyers, forensics gurus, good politicians, why has this not really helped in curtailing this?
See, there are two things I'd like to say. That when things move, they are driven, and they're driven by the benefit of people or for profits. Like Mr. Trojan said, here we are being driven by profits, which is an unfortunate direction that we are moving in. That's the first aspect. The second aspect is that when profits drive maybe narcotics and things relentlessly, right, then those profits also involve young boys and girls to be participative as dealers or suppliers or carriers and things like that. Initially it is good, they're earning good money, much more than their friends and associates who are doing regular jobs, but then it destroys those families ultimately. And I don't believe that such a large distribution can happen without the support of some bad apples in the system. So because of those bad apples in the system, we are heading towards being...
Bad apples is a civilized phrase to use.
Yes.
The correct phrase is rogues.
Rogues and maybe one or two good apples.
Well,
okay.
As an advocate, I would sort of be a little cautious out there. But there are a few bad apples, and they have driven us down to that particular level. Okay. So I don't see much of a change. When I walk with friends to the beach side, one is approached by people asking whether I would like to buy some narcotics or things like that openly out there. So the change that which one wanted to see for the better has certainly not happened.
Vikram, you were talking about this whole issue of prosecution and investigating murders. You obviously kind of have been in the thick of things in many of these murder cases. Where do you think the delay in investigations happens? What are the flaws which leads to the accused getting away?
See, I think the first level of delay here is that we don't have a dedicated homicide department. So a police inspector in charge of a police station who is looking after large number of things, right? He may find that he doesn't have the time and energy required for the kind of investigation a homicide needs out there.
Right.
So there have been a number of cases where the police have preferred to call a sort of a homicide as an accidental death, or a murder as an accidental death, or a natural death, or something of that sort. They have not informed the forensic department of the exact findings what they found at the scene of crime. And they have, after taking the forensics reports, they have interpreted any kind of findings as a cause for a conclusion of a natural death or maybe an unnatural death at the most. Now this results in not filing of an FIR. An FIR is filed normally when there is a cognizable crime committed. Now if you do not file an FIR immediately, then the gathering of evidence, right, which is a critical sort of portion for the trial, is not done. And this eventually leads to an acquittal out there. But if you have, and then the mindset is, what I find is, despite glaring evidence of suspicion. I'm not saying it's evidence for a conviction. This is evidence for a suspicion, right? If glaring evidence of suspicion, the police still have preferred not to file an FIR, and that delay is fatal,
Right.
in the trial later on.
Vikram, since you are so closely involved in the Scarlett Keeling case, can you extrapolate what you just said generally and apply it to the Scarlett Keeling case and give us a better example of how it happened?
Yeah. So in that particular case, the sort of
In the Scarlett Keeling case.
Scarlett Keeling
Yes,
case,
yes,
the incident happened on the 18th
Yes.
of February 2008, and there were a number of injuries on the body. So if it would have been a police officer who was trained in homicide, that would have given him enough reason to register a 302 FIR and begin the investigations immediately. But the sort of, I think they were probationary officers who went out there. They collected the body, they sent it for the autopsy, and in that Fiona was called and she was told that the girl went swimming.
Fiona being the mother for viewers. Yes.
Yeah, she went swimming in the sea and she died. And 3 days later, when Fiona came to me, she said, I don't trust the police because all the local people who have met me have informed me that she was murdered. It's after all a small village, and people who commit crime, somebody sees it, they all discuss and they know exactly what's happened. The only people who do not know are the citizens and other people. So she wanted some assistance in the matter. So we said, okay, I'm not going to push for an FIR until I see that there is some evidence of suspicion. So we contacted the forensic department. We went, we saw the body, and we saw the injuries which were there. Based on that, we asked we wrote a letter to the Anjuna police that there is cause of suspicion because of injuries, and an FIR should be registered. Their response was, you contact the DYSP. His response was, you contact the SP. And like this, there was a substantial delay. Now, these are police officers. They know that when a murder happens, the scene of crime has to be sealed off, evidence has to be collected, and all that can be done only when an FIR is registered out there. If you have a sort of a principle of registering an unnatural death, and 6 months later you register an FIR, or 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later, a substantial portion of the evidence will be destroyed. And what it means is either an acquittal or a murder to be reduced to culpable homicide not amounting to murder.
Right.
And on the ground, this means that a person who must face life imprisonment ends up facing a maximum of 10 years with a huge amount of effort from the side of the prosecution out there. So here I found there was a huge sort of a loss because of the delay in registering of the FIR out there. And this came because the local police concluded that this was a case of an accidental death. And they announced it in the media also.
Dr. Sapeko, see, this is obviously going to be an uncomfortable question because it also reflects on a department that you've gloriously served. But you've also been a victim of circumstances, political or otherwise. And we all are aware of that. Could you take this occasion to open up, and we would be grateful if you do so for the benefit of Goa as a whole, as to how the forensics department is unfortunately become a political tool in most of these investigations? If you could give it with examples, we'll be very grateful.
I fully concur with what Sir Vikram has said. We need to have a police officer who is in LLB, the least, because he is the person who knows the tenets of law. And there are police officers who are police inspectors and DYSPs who are LLB.
Right.
Definitely they'll be able to take the investigation. But the most important part is that the police investigating system should take the forensic doctor, forensic scientist, and visit together at the scene of crime. And this omission till today, right from 2008, is going on.
In each and every case.
In each and every case where it is overlooked.
Right.
They don't want to work in a teamwork spirit. In fact, the other day I was talking to Mr. Bagmare, who is the present director of the FSLF. They not even brought in confidence. Prior to they want to visit the scene of crime. No, it is not being done. Now there is a new National Forensic Science University which has been opened at Kurti Pondar. Another teaching institution. They are also not brought in confidence. They are saying, no, we will sign an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding. When? I don't know when will be the sunrise or the sunset. So what I am saying, somebody should bail the cat and the consequences. But what is primarily important is that today all of us have to be united. Forensic medicine doctors, police investigation officer, forensic scientist, serologist, with a CCTV camera team, they should go to the scene of spot. First, screen the area, educe the evidence. After educing the evidence, then only you send the dead body. Today, this is not happening. And in fact, this omission is beneficial to the alleged accused persons. They get the benefit of doubt, and that is how the cases go for acquittal.
I'll again come back to my question again. Doctor, if you could just tell us, see, there is this charge, not on the department as it were, but generally there is a charge or a very strong feeling that the delay in either, in the manner in which the postmortem report is conducted, or the final findings of the postmortem which are recorded, there could be a motive behind every word, every comma, every full stop, what is written, what is not written. And a lot of this manipulation happens because of the urgency on part of the political system to actually take the side of the accused rather than take the side of the victim. Firstly, how true is that, and what are your experiences with regard to this particular point that I have raised?
I wouldn't fully concur with your views, sir, but I feel there is a part of the system which is working in this direction in order to benefit the alleged accused either by the omission or by the commission. But what is very, very essential is that it is doctor is an easy target.
Right.
Their own brothers and sisters can work against the own system, and united we stand, divided we fall. So when they are divided, it is easy to crush each of them. I think the doctors community till today, that in Goa Medical College, the consultants and the heads of departments are not united.
Right.
The super specialty block is coming up only with the existing people in this. Who is looking after all this? One man cannot look after, but it is everybody is pressurized or tortured to take up the system. But somebody should be a facilitator at this time of crisis to ensure that the norms laid down by the National Medical Commission or by the earlier Medical Council of India should be adhered to perfection.
Right.
Who is the watchdog to watch all this? There is no watchdog.
Correct.
What I plead is that if there is a watchdog to ensure that these things are observed, not by the breach, but by the practice, then only the system will be.
So, coming to the Scarlett Keeling case itself, since that we use that as a base for the whole demise of the system, as it were. If you look at the forensic report, there was a big difference between what you found. Correct me if I am wrong, but I'm just placing what we know on the table, and what your junior at that point of time found. I will not name the particular doctor, but we all know who we are talking about. And the issue is that initially it was so strange, as hindsight proves, that the report of your junior was ultimately found to be a mistake rather than your report, which was thought to be a mistake. And the CBI relied on your findings to finally lead to the conviction. Since it is a matter of public record, we would like you to talk about it.
I said, whatever you have said is the truth, whole truth and the gospel truth. I am thankful to the learned CBI public prosecutor, Mr. Ejaz. He was so nice and so cooperative in the case, where he was able to convincingly put forth the facts before the trial judge. And he is the one who has done a lot of work, obviously behind the screen, is sir, who has also extended his helping hand and ensured that the chain of evidence was fortified and ensured that conviction.
So what was there in your version of the forensic report which finally was found to be true?
The injuries which I had made a mention, the queries that were raised by the investigating agency were all answered with documentary evidences and supportive corroborative evidence of authorities from textbooks and of authorities which would convincingly say that it was an unnatural death wherein the element of homicide cannot be ruled out but has to be confirmed.
Correct.
The confirmation theory comes from the police investigating agency. If they tend to see no evil, hear no evil, and do no evil, then sorry, we cannot do anything much. What we need is a good watchdog system.
But unfortunately, fingers can be pointed at the department itself when there are two contrary reports, and one report delays the investigation and derails it, and another report puts it back on track. It kind of says its own story without.
May I answer that?
Yes.
See, I went through both the reports in detail, and I remember them very clearly. Right.
Sure.
Now, as far as Dr. Sapeko's report was concerned, it was the injuries were grouped together. So if there were 3 injuries on a particular portion, he marked them as a group of injuries out there. And as per the testimony of the police officer, Lakshmi Amankar, what he has testified in court, that these injuries were pointed out by Dr. Sapeko to Lakshmi Amankar. Dr. Sapeko also explained to him exactly how the murder happened, because Lakshmi Amankar was a probationary officer and Dr. Sapeko had considerable experience. He knew exactly how things had happened. This is the testimony he has provided to the court. He has also further said that with the sort of information and guidance of Dr. Sapeko, he came back and he told his police inspector that this is how this murder has happened and we need to register the 302. His police officer superior told him, what does the doctor know? Right? This has to be recognized as a accidental death. I will take care of it. Now, this is not something which is not off the record. It's on the record, and it has evidentiary value.
Right.
So, to my mind, the report, the forensic report provided by Dr. Sapeko, and the sort of information provided was absolute and complete to register a 302 immediately. Right. He was blamed for not providing it, and that sort of allegation was false, to my mind.
Right. So, actually, on a lighter note, you always need a lawyer to come, establish facts better than
that is why they are called learned defense counsel.
Pradhan, just wanted to ask you this. Now, the thing is, why doesn't the society, and we mentioned it earlier also, speak openly about this nexus? There seems to be an open nexus. If you see, not only in this case, you find so many other cases. You find the case of the 2 alleged drug dealers, one was Dudu and one was Atala. And we all know the kind of remarks one of them made, where a politician's son was kind of directly or indirectly named. Okay, but that again is a tip of the iceberg. What we need to know here is that the whole nexus between politics and the world of drugs appears to be very intense. Why is there not so much of voicing of this?
The voicing cannot be done here in the state because they have the security of their life. You are dealing with people who can just wipe you out and you will not even be looked after. See, we do not have a proper investigative system. And if there is if the case collapses, the investigating officer and all those who are involved are all left scot-free.
Right.
Had they been brought to books, you court pass strictures, what happens? Nothing happens.
Correct.
They are suspended for 2 months, 3rd month they are back inside.
Right.
So when the system is not prepared to protect the citizen, as I told you, the state is the guardian of a citizen. If I am allowed to speak, I am allowed to speak free. But after I speak free, what is going to happen to me? I don't know. So why will anybody take the risk? And many people have faced the brunt of this. Government officers who are working honestly, like Dr. Sapeko, have faced the brunt of it for being honest in your job. So how do you?
I am reminded of the SP Vijay Singh, if I am not mistaken, a very good SP of North Goa, who apparently took on some of the noted.
You have a very prominent politician who says, I know all the names, I have given it to the chief minister. And now what is happening? Openly he comes out to say that the names are given to the chief minister. You know it. The late chief minister.
Yes.
Now why is the present chief minister quiet?
Right.
If you have the names so bluntly, and nobody is getting caught.
Right.
So what are we exactly saying? Are you putting that as a bait? That Baba, is it a blackmail? I know the name, so I should make it. What other explanation is there in that? There's no other explanation that I can see.
Also, the other issues, I'll just extend this question a little bit more. See, if you see the entire belt, of course, it has moved to the other areas, but if you look at the whole, let's say Kalundrud constituency and say the Perne constituency, if you look at these two.
Take the coastal.
Yeah, okay. Shioli, Kalundrud, Perne. Yeah, the three assembly constituencies. Yes. Okay. Now, if you look at these three assembly constituencies, the presence of drug dealers of every kind. There are Nigerian drug dealers, there are European drug dealers, there are Indian drug dealers, there are gangs. We all remember, I think about in 2012 there was this murder of the Nigerian, and then how his body was kind of kept on the national highway, and the Nigerians came and literally they were actually attacking the police. There, I remember. To give so-called justice to their fallen comrade. Okay, the point here is that the number of drug gangs is only increasing, even as the Hyderabad police has found out. Okay, they obviously have their godfathers in different places. Goa is also become known as a conduit for distribution of drugs. The Hyderabad incident has actually seen that drugs are coming into Goa.
And from Goa it is
and so Goa is both an importer and exporter in that sense. Okay. The issue here is that we have agencies like the anti-narcotics cell, ANC. You have the local police. You have other crack squads. My issue is that why aren't these people equipped with not only equipment, better investigation tools, and staffed with officers with greater moral authority?
No, you cannot have that. The tools is not going to help you if your intention is not there at all.
Correct, that's what I said.
The tools are there if they want to, but there is no intention of getting caught. The whole moment there is a death and there is a drug, the immediate their whole attention is how to get the biggest cut inside. And therefore, drug gang, and even now in this present case, drug gang are being. They want to the property, they want why she was there. The drug is not being looked at.
Correct.
When it was brought into the hotel room and given to them. And then you say, colleagues, they spiked the drink after 2 days of watching the CCTV.
Correct.
First you say heart attack. See, the whole system is so, because they don't, even the authorities don't want to accept that she died out of drugs. If a bullet shot is gone and all that, they will do the investigation. But when it comes to drugs, and therefore till today, where is the Kenny Kingpin caught? Some fellow who brought it there at the gate, he's caught.
Right.
From where did he get it?
Right.
There are indications saying that there are some officers involved in this from where the original drug came. Because one thing is a fact. Whenever drug is caught, the correct quantity is not shown.
Right.
75 to 80% is kept behind.
Right.
And that is security in the market. Once again.
And you are saying this with full responsibility.
With full responsibility is a fact known. Everybody is talking about it. I am not saying it. I am telling you what the gossip is going on.
And we also hear that that the police has gone on record to say that all the drugs in the ANC Malkhana has been eaten by rats.
Eaten by rats.
Correct. Yes.
White ants.
White ants. Sorry, white ants. White ants. Correct. Right. Very drugged white ants. Okay, Dr. Sipeko, just while we are winding up, one more question. Now, in your vast experience, and there have been so many mysterious deaths of foreigners and others, what is your professional opinion on these cases? Is the drug angle there in most of these cases?
Yes. In fact, I remember asking a top official of both the executive and the investigating agency that I would love to escort them to show the angle. Every house or every bungalow which is having a 6 or 9 meter height is having drugs inside.
Seriously?
Yes, serious.
Where in that belt?
In the belt. So I told him, you just escort me. I'm going to take you, but you have the powers to enter inside.
But how did you come to that assessment?
Because it's a known fact. Everybody speaks that the drugs are coming out from those bungalows which are having 6 or 9 meter heights, and obviously there is somebody who's protecting them. And
I will just
sure.
See, every death that has been registered as murder due to drugs, the person has been only convicted for murder and the drug
Correct.
That has not been taken seriously.
Right.
So it's totally under the control.
I'll just take it forward.
Sure.
See, in the Scarlett Keeling case also, the trial judge very learned judge. It was her finding that from the testimony of the witnesses, from the forensic evidence, that the girl was given a large amount of narcotics. The witnesses said that in front of us she was given narcotics. So she said, despite overwhelming evidence of narcotics being provided to her, I see no action being taken by the anti-narcotic cell.
The trial judge actually said
the trial judge has recorded in a judgment out there. Right. And this casts a doubt on the credibility of the investigating agency. And the benefit of doubt should be given to the accused. So when there's so much evidence, right, and evidence normally reaches the court with great difficulty. Normally a witness who wants to give evidence, he is threatened, he is bribed, he is influenced. Don't go there or we'll finish you off. So when evidence reaches the court really appreciates the evidence that this has finally come. Right. So she has recorded that, like what Mr. Trojan said, that people, despite so much narcotics being sort of distributed, no action is being taken. And in this particular case, that was a result
of murder, which has evidence to say that she was drugged or he was drugged.
Right.
Has been taken forward for having given drugs.
Right.
Drug expert is totally kept and everybody is happy that he was convicted for murder.
Yes.
So how will the drug dealers get worried about? They are not worried.
See, in the handing over of the case to the CBI, the Goa government, the chief secretary, had sort of clearly said to investigate the murder of Scarlett Keeling and any other issue related to that. So that gave a free hand both to the Goa police and to the CBI to investigate that angle also.
Right.
Which was not done.
Right. Dr. Subramanian, you were talking of those houses with 9 meters. Just tell us a little bit about more. That's very interesting. On how you kind of zeroed in on that. That there are homes in that belt that are being used as storage for drugs.
Well, this is what has come from their own village, the neighbors.
Right.
They are the ones who came and leaked out this information. And when I brought it to the notice of the officials, appropriate authorities in power at that time, this is way back in 1990 I'm talking about.
Right.
At that time, they, by their omission, they allowed it to go, and still it is going on. And once in a blue moon, whenever they raid a so-called house, some small quantities are detected, and that's at the end of it. Nothing comes forward.
So what you are saying is that the majority of the cases that have come to you, majority of these dead bodies that have come to you in these mysterious cases, you have noticed you prima facie you realize that it's a drug case.
Yes.
But obviously because of delay in the viscera report and others, they get passed off as unnatural deaths and the drug angle is not gone. That has happened in many cases.
Yes.
The delay in but isn't there any way that you can come to a conclusion without the viscera final report? You cannot.
No, you see, sir, when the conviction has to occur, there must be a qualitative and quantitative analysis of the chemical analysis, drug, named drug, and whether it has accelerated, precipitated, or caused the death, or the injuries were present or not.
No, but the investigating officer, as Vikram has said, that the moment you are suspected it is drug, you let the murder angle be looked into. Immediately you should start investigation on the drug, from where it came, how it came, and you should reach to the point.
Correct.
But here what they are doing, they are just keeping the drug part aside.
See, what happens is the money trail is never followed, the chain is never followed. It's broken right there.
So,
which is why the Pritesh Borkers of the world roam around freely. Before we conclude, a quick last session, last round on what are the solutions. Let's end with a hope that the system can still be fixed. So even if it's utopia, let us still talk about it.
Yes, I think here the key point has been raised by Dr. Sarpiko. Right? The phrase in English is thick as thieves.
Right.
Not as thick as honest men. These people, they are really thick together. They know how to manipulate the evidence, how to delay things, they've got the whole system worked out beautifully.
Right.
While the honest people who are good citizens and who want to improve things, they are not together the way they should be. I mean, what he pointed out was the police needs to work closely with the forensics. Right? The forensics should be adequately equipped. There are good people. There are a large number of good people who would like to work and clean up the system. But it needs a good leadership to bring them together. A leadership which understands and has the ability to weave them together. And then we can defeat the narcotics problem, the plague.
Dr. Sapeko, your last words on looking forward.
In fact, I always tell the investigating officers not to come with the same old notorious so-called stock witnesses who will turn hostile. I want government officials who are serving the government to be witnesses. They are highly impartial. They will speak the truth, whole truth and the gospel truth, and they will not resile the original statement. They will be scared of a charge of perjury against them, wherein they'll get a penalty of 7 years imprisonment. Has anyone seen the light of the day that anyone who has turned hostile, has he ever been prosecuted? The answer is no. So I think there is a need that someone has to bear the cat and the consequences and ensure that hereafter at least whoever is taking, because we have got a beautiful department called Director of Prosecution.
Right.
I know right from the time of Madam Shobha Dubaskar, Sir Anand Salkar, Desmond, and even now the present Madam Sardina, we are efficient people. But do their words what they write implement it in letter and in principle? The answer is no. And therefore, I feel that the corroborative evidence needs to be fortified to ensure that the alleged accused becomes a convicted person. He undergoes the prison and then he comes out as a refined person in the society.
Thank you, Guru. Trajan, before we end, your final look ahead and
Final look is, I'll tell you,
is there a ray of
I
hope?
have suggested, but I feel if the investigating officer who has failed to prove a case is given an exemplary punishment, I think the message will go down that I cannot play the fool. But today, losing a case is the officer getting promoted. See them, most of the officers who are promoted, you will see at least 50% cases they failed to prove.
Right.
Minimum I'm talking about. So if that is the case, so somewhere the system, and we have 75 years of...
And we're still discussing this one.
Discussing a system
Correct.
to see that the crime is brought to its minimum, not to eliminate crime.
Right. We've unfortunately kind of run out of time. This discussion could have gone on for hours and hours with three such learned men discussing and deliberating. We wish there were more people like them in the system actually helping out rather than they being outside the system, as it were. But one will end with a slightly somber note, and I am struck by the phrase that Advocate Vikram used, thick as thieves, and that is something that kind of rings the strongest bell, and that I think sums up the whole debate. This whole phrase sums up the whole debate, because what happens is it is obvious that which side is stronger. It is not about which side is right or which side is wrong, but what is the sad takeaway is the side that is wrong in the eyes of the law, or should be wrong in the eyes of the law, that side happens to be stronger because of their the ease in which they manipulate the system. And the system doesn't only consist of thieves, as it were, quote unquote. I mean, the system also consists of men who are elected to protect the system and rule with integrity. Now, if you have cases getting brushed under the carpet, if you find your viscera report either not being preserved, or when it's preserved, never coming back on time. As Dr. Sapeko said shockingly that he has never seen a case where the viscera has come back in 15 days. Then it opens up this whole issue opens up the whole issue to reach only one conclusion, that the system is designed to protect the accused rather than protect the victims, which is why Goa is seen as a state, very sadly, notorious for these unnatural deaths happening, which do not lead to a final conviction of the people who are perpetrators of this crime. And it is sad to know that even now we have like a conglomeration of kith and kin of people who've been murdered in Goa, of foreigners in different parts of Europe and other places, who meet regularly to give each other support in trying to fight the system in Goa to get justice. And that still happens. I mean, we know so many people who do it. And that is what is sad, because all of them cannot be wrong. So that is where the issue lies, that Goa needs to be more responsible. And if you are more responsible, you'll get better tourists to come. you will have the menace of drugs going out not in the tourist belt but in the villages itself. And ultimately we'll end up becoming a better and more responsible society. Because right now what is happening is that the system is only feeding itself, unscrupulous politicians are making money, and criminals are getting away with no justice to the victims and the unfortunate. On this note, I thank all my panelists for their very insightful comments and views, which has helped us to at least get a better picture of what is going on, and with a prayer that some solutions that they have suggested will fructify at some point of time. Thank you so much.